Hi, I'm Chike Coleman, that's Chuck Koplinski, and we're back for another week to talk about movies. This week is our Thanksgiving week, as we won't be having a show the week of Thanksgiving. But the first thing I wanted to talk with you about, Chuck, is the fact that Hunger Games Catching Fire is coming out this weekend. And I wanted to go over the first few in case our viewers haven't seen it. So Hunger Games involves Katniss Everdeen and her sister Prem. There apparently are these districts in this world of Hunger Games where you have to compete as tribute to gain food for your district. If you win these games, then you get a lot more food than the other districts do. If you lose these games, you die, and all the hope for your district getting extra food is lost. We have Jennifer Lawrence playing Katniss, Josh Hutcherson playing Peeta. Is that his name, Peeta or Peter?
Peeta.
Peeta. And we've got Lenny Kravitz as the guy who dresses up Katniss, and Woody Harrelson as an old war hero who's basically training Katniss and being her advisor, and Donald Sutherland as what I can only assume is the president. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, directed by Gary Ross, who is also the director of the film Pleasantville. I had a really big problem with this film in that it featured way too much shaky cam. Mm-hmm. There were very few steady shots in the film. The dark night scenes were too dark. Jennifer Lawrence did a fine performance. I didn't believe Josh Hutcherson as Peeta. What else is there? I feel like the director was trying to drive us not only to care about these characters, but to feel bad about when they die in these games. But I surprisingly didn't feel bad for anyone who died in these games, except one character who is only featured in what I would think is about 3 scenes. Her name is Rue, and her death, when it occurs, actually got me kind of emotional because I didn't really feel like that character deserved it. Chuck, what did you think of the Hunger Games when you saw it?
I would agree with the biggest problem I did have was with Gary Ross. A director should not be calling attention to himself while you're watching a film. And as you say, his shaky, constantly moving camera eventually did do that. Obviously, the shaky cam was to suggest that things are unsteady in this world, and I get it. Mm-hmm. But it should not have continued to the point to where it becomes a distraction. So I, too, had a problem with that. I had a problem with the story itself, and it's not so much the filmmaker, but the source material.
And have you read the source material?
I had a problem with the fact that we're seeing children get killed.
Yeah.
That really is unsettling after a while. I understand violence is prevalent in our society and in cinema, and it might come off as being splitting hairs that I would have a problem with this, and yet in the second film when it's adults it's not as much of a problem. But that was an issue, and I also had a problem with the switcheroo that we have at the end. Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the author of the book, Susan Collins. You set up this situation in which there's going to be one person left. You get us to sympathize with 2 of them,
yeah, and
then you pull a switcheroo in which both of them survive. That seemed to be a bit of a cheat to me. You can't do that. You can't set this up, get us emotionally engaged, and then pull the rug out from under us. That's very disingenuous.
Yeah, you can't change the rules of the game like that and expect us to be okay with the fact that you changed the rules just because you wanted to, so that other districts can feel sympathy.
So I had a lot of mixed feelings about the film. I think she's fabulous, though.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, if it weren't for her, I probably would have taken a nap. She does get us. I did sympathize with her. I mean, I was on her side throughout. I think I was on her side because she had moral qualms about all of this as well. Mm-hmm. So she's a very good actress. I mean, there's no question, and she's going to keep you engaged in most anything she does.
I would agree. I love Jennifer Lawrence because of the awkwardness with which she found herself within this world of the new high society that, she was having to play for sponsors and dress in all these things that she wasn't used to. And it was all very awkward for her, and you could feel it within her performance. And having that bit of awkwardness, and even in some cases disengagement to what was going on in her life because of having to be a tribute, was amazing to behold. I really thought that vulnerability of not knowing what to do in a situation where you know you're going to have to kill people or be killed was what made the movie for me. I didn't care about Josh Hutcherson. I didn't care about her other friend whose name I don't know. The other guy who she's actually in love with.
Liam Hemsworth.
Liam Hemsworth character, which I haven't seen a more stone-faced in my entire life since I saw the preview for that other film he's in, Paranoia.
Yeah, that is a weakness in the casting of this film. Neither one of these guys you see her with.
Yeah.
You know, they're competing for the blandest boyfriend in the world award, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
honey, if this is all you got to work with here, you know, not having enough food isn't your biggest problem.
Yeah.
However, in the second film, there is a character who I'm hoping, I haven't read the rest of the books, who's much more her speed, and you know, maybe we'll talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after Thanksgiving break. I wanted to also take some time, since we're talking about the Hunger Games, to look at another film related to the Hunger Games and something that came out before the Hunger Games. And we've talked about this film on the show before, but I think it warrants mentioning again, and that's Battle Royale, which is the Japanese film involving students at I want to say it's a school. Is it a school? I can't remember exactly. I think it's a school, and the army takes them and says, you have to do a battle of the death, and whoever wins avoids this horrible situation. I forget what the actual MacGuffin is, too. I think it was something to do with a bomb of some sort. Oh, that's right. They all had bombs on them, and if they didn't, you know, go out and kill these
So it was like Speed.
these other people in this, I won't call it a tournament or a game, but if they didn't go and kill these people, then the bombs that were attached to them would explode and they would die. And of course, there are people who didn't want to participate, and because they didn't want to participate, they died because of the bomb strapped to them. This is a very, very, very good film, in my opinion, about the similar sort of setup you could have to Hunger Games. The only difference between Hunger Games and Battle Royale, in my opinion, is that you get to care about the characters. You know, every character in that film, no matter how long they're on screen, has a very distinct personality. And you know, some are definitely more whiny than others, but you believe in all the characters and you don't really want them to die because you see that they've been thrust into the situation. The one disadvantage Hunger Games has is that the situation is known and it's been played out before. For the students of Battle Royale, it's all a complete surprise. Nobody knows that it's coming, and their fear and vulnerability about what to do next and how they're supposed to survive is what makes Battle Royale a more unique and more well put together picture than the Hunger Games. Chuck, you've seen this film before.
No, I haven't.
You haven't seen it? You really should. It's a great film that really takes the concept that the Hunger Games puts forth and evolves it to a great degree.
There's a movie that just came out straight to video called Would You Rather, which is similar to this. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I have, yeah.
Which a woman I think her brother has cancer, and she's having problems with medical bills, and she's invited by a mysterious benefactor to a dinner party, promising her that he has the solution to her problems. And other people are at the party, and they are given situations. You know, would you rather do this or would you rather do that? And if you do the one thing that is the more, shall we say, questionable moral choice, then you get paid. And of course, it all comes down to who is going to survive this dinner party thing. So very similar to that.
Have you seen that film? Because I did see a trailer for that. I actually seen that.
Haven't
film.
seen it. It's sitting at home on top of my TV. I haven't gotten around to it, but I am anxious to watch it because it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds like a great.
And it also this whole Hunger Games thing reminds me of a book that Stephen King wrote under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman many years ago called The Long Walk, in which kids are recruited and you just walk. And it's it lasts. Whoever walks the longest, and along the way, if you stop, there's a police officer there to shoot you in the head, and you're dead. And of course, it all gets down into the relationships between the players and who's going to make it or not. And of all the Stephen King things that they've plumbed for films, and you would think they would have gotten to everything yet, they still haven't gotten to this one, which surprises me.
Yeah, I really like the concept of kind of a game thing. I don't like the idea of a fight to the death, but it does, if played correctly, of course, allow us to care about and be invested in the characters. I personally have never read The Hunger Games, so I wasn't really invested at all in the outcome of what happened to Katniss or Peeta or whatever Liam Hemsworth's character's name is supposed to be.
George.
George,
Bill.
we can go with that.
Wood.
I just don't think that type of thing works if you don't have actors willing to really give the characters personality. And Jennifer Lawrence was the one one person that gave her character some life, and her character felt lived. So I did like that.
Gail.
Gail? Really? Yeah. That's what Susan Collins went with. Gail?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's a questionable choice for a guy, but okay. I wanted to also spend some time talking about 2 movies each that we're thankful for. So, Chuck, why don't you do one?
No, you go first, because I'm still thinking. You sprung this on me.
I gave you like 10 minutes before the show.
Oh, 10 minutes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, fine. I'll go first. The first movie that I am incredibly thankful for, and you're going to think this is dumb.
No.
But Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. If ever I'm having a bad day, I always love to watch that film, not only for the Talk Boy FX, not only for the fabulous hotel that Kevin McAllister lives in while he's using his father's money and running up a credit card charge of $1,000, but the idea of all the weird, odd slapstick that happens to Daniel Stern's character of Marv, especially one of the things that will always, without fail, put me in a good mood is Marv getting the bricks dropped on his head. That scene is always, always, always funny. I also love the family dynamic of yet another family vacation where Kevin does something stupid to allow himself to get left at home. In the first film, of course, it was he slept in. In the second film, it was he was stupid enough to be in an airport and put batteries into his Talk Boy FX. Really? It couldn't have waited until he got on the plane? I guess not. And that's the one misgiving of the film. I would have thought that the film would have been more clever in terms of how to make Kevin end up in the situation where he's in New York. You also have a delightfully gleeful performance from Tim Curry as one of the hotel attendants. You see the very early work of Rob Schneider during his present SNL days. And that's always great. And Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern work great together as a comedy duo. Chuck, what did you think of this film when you first saw it? Did you feel like it was a cash grab, or did you feel like it was something unique?
The film I'm thankful for is It's a Wonderful Life. This is a movie that no matter how many times I see it, I know this is probably a, trite or predictable choice. No matter how many times I see it, it ends up moving me. And I'm glad that it's around because I need to be reminded again and again about what's important in life and just to get your priorities straight again. It features performances from James Stewart and Donna Reed that never, ever get old. And of course, Frank Capra's direction is solid throughout. Just an interesting film as far as its history is concerned, as far as it being the first film that all these people made after World War II. And I think that they too needed to be reminded of what they were fighting for during the 5 years before that, and just what was important to everyone in America at that time. And none of that really goes away. The power of this film never diminishes over time. And I would suggest, if you've only seen it on NBC with commercials, track it down, not colorized, in black and white, and just sit down and watch it straight through. When it is chopped up like that, it fails to build up the sense of momentum that it needs in order to give you that emotional knockout punch that it has at the end. So it's a film I go back to constantly, and I'm very thankful that it was rescued from obscurity all those years ago, as it had fallen into eminent domain and was in very much big danger of being forgotten.
I completely agree with you about It's a Wonderful Life. I have seen both, as you mentioned, the NBC cut down version, which I found to be a bit distasteful because I had already seen the full version in black and white beforehand. I really loved Jimmy Stewart's performance as well, and Donna Reed is especially moving as his wife. I honestly think that, yes, it is one of those films that reminds you to take stock of your life, and that's something that I think all of America needs to do in the internet age of consumerism and buying things immediately on Amazon or watching things immediately on iTunes. We forget how much we have, and that film reminds us what we should be
Cherishing.
Instead of what we are concerned about in our lives. So I really do agree with your choice on that film. The second film that I really love, that I go back to time and time again, regardless of what's going on, is not a comedy. It's a drama. It's a film called Les Choristes, which is the chorus in French. I love this film. It's from 2004. It involves a new teacher coming in to teach a group of boys and them misbehaving and then not really having anything to care about because they don't see themselves as care about. Because this school, in my mind, and I don't think this is really hinted at, is kind of an orphanage a little bit. And this teacher is actually a composer, so he composes music and he has the children sing it. And the children bond together, especially one of the more evil kids, who I believe is named Claude. And they make beautiful music together until, the choir is forcefully disbanded by the school's principal or superintendent or something. And it just, by the end of the film, it breaks my heart because those boys have bonded not only with each other but with their teacher, and he has to leave, and they're all, giving him what I believe is one of the most tear-jerking send-offs I've ever seen in film. But he feels like all the work he did all those years ago is validated because we see things happening in the present with two of the original students from that school. And it's a really great French film.
When was this made?
2004, I believe.
Okay.
And it was just a magnificently shot film. You need to see it if you haven't.
That sounds interesting. That one I will track down.
Okay. And your second choice, Chuck?
I'm going to try and think a little bit out of the box here, and this may seem strange, but The Bride of Frankenstein is a film I'm thankful for. It's probably the film I have seen more than any other movie in my life. And I enjoy it because it captures for me what film is all about, as far as innovation, as far as imagination, as far as covering everything. This film is a horror story. It's also a comedy. It's also a commentary on humanism. It is ahead of its time still, even though it was made in 1935, because director James Whale had just such a unique vision of combining so many different elements as far as period pieces, time pieces, genres. It's a film that remains fresh and ultimately remains very, very moving. Because basically it's a film about loneliness and being ostracized, as the monster, played by Karloff, wants a mate and is even in the end rejected by her. It's a film, like I say, very much about loneliness and is very poignant at times, even among the fantastic elements that are in there. I watched it again and I actually taught a little seminar on it not too long ago. It was perhaps the 30th time I've seen this film, and it's still remains fresh, and it is a great movie to use to introduce children to the horror genre. My son Grant saw it when he was 8 for the first time, and he loved it. It's a good introduction to the genre, and the old films as well. It's a good way to introduce kids to older films to get them interested in basic film grammar before you start, teaching them about other things as far as cinema.
I want to add a third film to my list because you've mentioned these classic films, and I haven't really mentioned a classic film that I'm thankful for.
Oh, what you did? You said Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2 is classic for my generation. I mean classic in the general sense. So I'm going to add one more to my list, and if you feel like you need to as well,
Okay.
you can. The other film that I'm masterfully thankful for, and I feel sad that I omitted this, is 12 Angry Men. This film centers on 12 jurors who, for purposes of this film, are trying to decide a boy's fate because he committed a crime, and they're trying to decide whether he deserves the death penalty. And there's one holdout juror, played by Henry Fonda, in the prime of his career, who decides, you know what, no, I don't really think that this guy should be put to death. He's just a kid. And one by one, his evidence of what he believes should be the truth of the crime comes out. And he slowly convinces each and every juror to vote differently than they had previously. And I think the standout scene of that film has to be when the last holdout juror finally lets go. And that to me is one of those movies where not only are you looking at morality in terms of what would be right for someone and having to be the person making that decision and how hard making that decision could be, but you're also looking at what other effects in people's lives could affect their decisions to choose guilty or not guilty.
Yeah, it's a reflection of all of them.
And it's a reflection of all of them and what would happen if they were in that person's shoes, I think. And that's one of the reasons I find it to be an exceptionally strong film. And if you have a DVD player or a Blu-ray player, you should go out right now and rent 12 Angry Men. Not on a regular DVD, but rent it from Criterion. The Criterion Collection sells hundreds of thousands of DVDs in restored versions, and this is one of their choices for the month of December of last year. You should pick it up while it's still there because there's some valuable information about the film process. And I forget who directed that film. Do you remember?
Sidney Lumet.
Sidney Lumet, who I believe he's made quite a few really great films. And I have one in my head.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one in my head, but I can't remember the name of it. Who was in that? You're killing me now. Okay, go ahead.
IMDb, Internet Movie Database, which we go to quite often, they have a list of top 250 films, and that list is comprised of people who go to the site voting on them, rating the films as to how they think they are on a scale of 1 to 10. 12 Angry Men is number 7 on that list, so that is how highly it was regarded. And it's the oldest film to be in their top 10. So that speaks volumes of that movie and its reputation and its staying power, because it still speaks to us today.
Do you have a third film, Chuck, that you wanted to?
I guess, just off the top of my head, I guess the other film I always go back to is Minority Report. Minority Report proves to me that you can deliver a big summer blockbuster with special effects and a science fiction plot and still have an important thing to say about it. It questions morality. It features one of Tom Cruise's great performances.
I agree.
And it's a neat film to watch because almost all the things that you see in this futuristic age have already now been invented or are being developed. So it's very prescient as far as the look into the future. And it's one of Spielberg's best that unfortunately never gets mentioned.
It never gets mentioned.
It's one of his best films.
I don't believe it was too well received by most critics either, and that's disappointing to me.
I don't know about that. I know Ebert had it as his second best film of the year that year. I had it as my first, but it wasn't. I think what you're saying is it wasn't like everyone embraced it like a Saving Private Ryan,
Right.
or Jaws, or
Yes.
Schindler's List, and perhaps that's why it's not mentioned as it should be when you mention Spielberg. I think the thing that upsets me is people tend to mention AI
Yeah.
before Minority Report, and I think Minority Report's a better film.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Speaking of AI, I know that was Steven Spielberg's homage to the late, great, why am I blanking on name?
Kubrick?
Kubrick, yes.
Who was
Stanley
going to make the
Kubrick.
film.
Yeah, who was going to make the film, but wasn't able to. And it felt like Spielberg imitating Kubrick, and in some ways, if Kubrick had made the film, it probably would have been Kubrick imitating Spielberg, which I think is quite interesting. I didn't know that directors could imitate style that specifically. Next week, though, when we come back from our Thanksgiving break, I'm going to be reviewing The Dallas Buyers Club, and we're also going to have a small discussion about the film Philadelphia, because I think those two films warrant connection and discussion about each other. So until then, I'm Chike Coleman, that's Chuck Koplinski, and we'll see you next week.